The transport ship docked at orbital station with a heavy thud that echoed through the metal corridors, grabbed his single duffel bag and stepped out into the chaos of the refugee station. He had seen war zones before. He had worked in disaster areas across 3 planets, but nothing prepared him for this. The station stretched in every direction, a massive wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Through the windows, he could see dozens of smaller ships arriving and departing. Each one carried more refugees. Each one carried more broken families. A woman in a worn station uniform met him at the airlock. Her name badge read Station Director. She looked tired. Everyone here looked tired. "You're the new relief coordinator?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." We don't have time for formalities here." She started walking, and he followed. "We have 3,000 refugees from 12 different species. Most lost their families in the sector wars. Many won't make it without specialized care." They walked through corridors packed with aliens, recognized some species from his training. Others were completely new to him. A tall being with blue skin held a crying child. A family of 4-armed creatures huddled together in a corner. Everyone looked lost. "Your primary assignment is the children's ward," said. She stopped at a large door. "We have 47 orphans, no parents, no family. Some species representatives say these children can't survive without their own kind." "What do you think?" asked. Looked at him with sharp eyes. "I think we have to try." She opened the door. The children's ward was a large room with sleeping areas along the walls and a common space in the middle. Small aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around or sat quietly. Some played with simple toys. Others just stared at nothing. A human woman approached them. "I'm medical officer and psychologist." She shook his hand. "Welcome to the hardest job you'll ever love." "Tell me about them," said. Pulled up "We have children, those are the ones with the 4 arms. They're social creatures. They're adjusting okay in groups. We have 3 younglings. They need cold environments, so they stay in the special unit. And we have 5 cubs." Had heard of them. Cat-like aliens from a planet that no longer existed. "There was destroyed completely," said quietly. "These 5 cubs are some of the last young alive. They don't do well with other species. They're very independent, very distrustful. Their biology makes them bond with family and only family." "What happens if they don't have family?" His face grew sad. "Usually they stop eating, stop talking, eventually they just fade away." Looked around the room. "Which ones are the cubs?" Pointed to different areas. 4 of them stay together over there. They're siblings, so they have each other, but that one," she pointed to a far corner, "she's alone." Saw her then. A small figure sitting in the corner, her back against the wall. She had silver-blue fur that caught the light, large pointed ears, and a long tail wrapped around her body. Her eyes were amber and empty. "How long has she been like that?" asked. 3 weeks since she stopped talking. 5 weeks since she stopped eating on her own. We have to use nutrient injections." Looked at her. She lost her parents and 2 siblings when their ship was destroyed. She was the only survivor. "She's just a child." "She's 6 cycles old. That's about 8 in human years." Closed her. "I won't lie to you, we don't think she's going to make it. Cubs need their family bonds. Without them, their bodies just shut down." Watched the small cub in the corner. She hadn't moved at all. What if someone tried to bond with her? "Across species," shook her head. "It's never been done, are too different from other species. Their bonding process is biological, not just emotional. She would have to choose to bond, and right now, she's chosen nothing." Put a hand on shoulder. "We're just trying to keep her comfortable. That's all we can do." But kept looking at that small figure in the corner. Something in his chest tightened. He had seen a lot of suffering in his work. He had learned to build walls around his heart, but those walls were cracking. "I'd like to try," he said. "Try what?" asked. "To help her." and exchanged glances. "We have 46 other children who can actually be helped. I'll help them too, but I want to try with her." Studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right, but don't expect miracles, and don't blame yourself when it doesn't work." That afternoon finished his orientation. He learned the station layout, the emergency procedures, the feeding schedules for different species. Then he went back to the children's ward. Was still in the same corner. She hadn't moved. Didn't approach her. He had worked with traumatized children before. He knew that pushing too hard could make things worse. Instead, he sat down about 10 feet away from her. He took out his and started working on supply requisitions. The other children watched him curiously. A small child approached and asked questions, answered gently, keeping his voice low. He didn't look at, he just stayed there, present but not threatening. An hour passed, then two, never moved, never approached. When his shift ended, he stood up slowly. He glanced at once, just once. Her amber eyes were watching him now, just barely. Then she looked away. It was a start. The next day came back. He sat in the same spot 10 feet from his corner. He worked on his. Sometimes he hummed quietly, old Earth songs his mother had taught him. He never looked directly at, he never tried to talk to her. The pattern continued for days. Every day would come to the ward. Every day he would sit in his spot and work. The other children grew used to him. They would come over and talk. He would help them with small problems, tell them simple stories, bandage their scrapes. But he never pushed, he was just there, constant, steady, present. On the third day, pulled him aside. "Her nutrition levels are improving slightly. She's eating small amounts on her own now." "That's good," said. "Is it because of you?" "I don't know, maybe she just needed time." But shook her head. "In 3 weeks she made no progress. In 3 days with you here she started eating. That's not coincidence." On the 7th day something changed. Was humming a soft melody when he heard a small sound. He looked up. Had moved just slightly. She was sitting 3 feet closer than before. His heart jumped, but he forced himself to stay calm. He smiled just a little and went back to his. He kept humming. That evening found him in his quarters. "Says you're making progress with the cub." "Maybe, I don't know." "What are you doing differently?" "Thought about it. Nothing, I'm just there. I'm not trying to fix her or change her. I'm just being present." Sat down across from him. "Do you know what you're risking? If she starts to bond with you and then you leave, it could kill her. Bond for life." "I know. Can you make that commitment to stay?" Looked out his window at the stars. He thought about his old life, the missions that never ended, the goodbyes that always came, the walls he had built to protect himself from caring too much. Then he thought about a small cub with amber eyes, sitting alone in a corner, choosing to move 3 feet closer. "Yes," he said, "I can stay." Nodded slowly. "Then I'll make it official, permanent assignment." That night couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the long road ahead, about all the ways this could go wrong. But he also thought about those 3 feet, about the small miracle of movement, about hope. In the children's ward, lay curled in her corner, but her eyes were open, and for the first time in weeks she was thinking about tomorrow. Tomorrow the human would come back. Tomorrow she might move a little closer. Tomorrow felt possible again. 3 months passed like water through fingers. The station continued its endless cycle of arrivals and departures, of tears and tiny victories. Fell into a rhythm. Wake up, help in the children's ward, handle supply issues, comfort crying younglings, sleep, repeat. But through it all there was. She was eating now. Real food, not just the nutrient injections. Said her weight was approaching normal levels. Her fur, once matted and dull, had started to shine again. She groomed herself now, a sign that she was beginning to care about living. And she followed everywhere. Not close, never close, but always within sight. When he moved to help another child, she would shift positions to keep him in view. When he left the ward, she would wait by the door until he returned. She never spoke, but she was always watching. "She's imprinted on you," said one morning. "It's the beginning of a bond." "Is that good or bad?" asked. "I don't know. It's never happened before between a human and a human engineer named stopped by the ward regularly to check the life support systems. He had noticed behavior too. "My daughter used to follow me around like that," he said, adjusting a ventilation panel, "before she got too cool for her old dad." "Where is she now?" asked. "Earth safe." His face softened. "You're doing a good thing here. Don't let anyone tell you different." The breakthrough came on an ordinary Tuesday. Was treating a young child named who had cut his hand on a sharp edge. Was terrified of medical equipment. Every time brought out the bandage supplies, would cry and pull away. Without thinking, reached into his pocket and pulled out a small sketch pad. He always carried it for making quick notes. But now he flipped to a blank page and started drawing. He drew a stick-figure doctor with wild hair running away from a tiny patient. The patient was chasing him with a bandage. It was silly, childish, but stopped crying. His large eyes focused on the drawing. "The doctor is scared," asked in broken common. "Very scared," said seriously. "Bandages are terrifying." Laughed. It was a strange sound, more like a chirp, but it was definitely laughter. Finished the bandaging while watched the drawing. When he was done, he tore out the page and gave it to. The child clutched it like treasure. From the doorway there was a sound, small, quiet, almost like a hiccup. Looked up, was standing there watching, and her face, her expression had changed. It wasn't quite a smile, didn't smile like humans, but something in her eyes had lightened. That small sound, it was almost like a laugh. His heart hammered in his chest. He wanted to react, to acknowledge it, but he forced himself to stay calm. He just met her eyes for a moment and gave a small nod. His tail flicked once, then she disappeared down the hallway. That evening, sat in his usual spot in the ward. He placed the sketchpad and a set of colored pencils on the table near where usually stayed. He didn't say anything. He didn't point them out. He just left them there and went about his work. For 2 days the supplies sat untouched. Began to think he had made a mistake. Maybe he had pushed too far too fast. But on the 3rd day, when he arrived at the ward, the sketchpad was gone. So were the pencils. Felt a surge of worry. Had someone taken them? Had thrown them away? He went about his duties, trying not to show his concern. But his eyes kept drifting to his corner. She was there, curled up as usual, but her body was angled differently, blocking something from view. Hours passed. Children came and went. The human teacher brought the older children to the learning room. An elder named Myra visited to check on the 4 sibling cubs. She gave a long, unreadable look but said nothing. At the end of his shift, stood to leave. He glanced once more at its corner. The sketchpad was back on the table, with the pencils. His hands shook as he picked it up. He opened it slowly. The pages were full of drawings. The artwork was incredible, detailed and precise in a way that seemed impossible for a child. But cubs had advanced motor skills. Their paws were as nimble as human hands. The first drawings showed family. Her mother tall and elegant. Her father strong and protective. 2 smaller cubs that must have been her siblings. The details were perfect. Every whisker, every strand of fur captured with love. Then the drawings changed. Dark colors, red and black, ships breaking apart, fire in the void of space, the destruction of everything she had known. His throat tightened. He had to pause, had to breathe. The pain in these drawings was overwhelming. But he kept turning pages. The final drawing was different. It showed the station's common room, simple furniture, plain walls, and 2 figures sitting together. A small cub and a tall human. The human's hand was extended. The cub's paw was reaching toward it, not quite touching, but almost. stared at that drawing for a long time. When he finally looked up, was watching him, really watching him, not just glancing. He carefully tore out that last page. He held it up so she could see, then he pressed it to his chest, over his heart. He hoped she understood. This drawing meant everything to him. His ears perked up slightly. Then she looked away, but not in fear, in something that might have been shyness. That night hung the drawing on the wall of his quarters. He used a permanent mounting strip. This wasn't coming down. The next day did something new. She followed him to his quarters during his lunch break. She stood in the doorway, not entering, just looking. Saw her there. "You can come in," he said gently, "if you want." She hesitated. For a long moment she stood frozen. Then slowly she stepped inside. She looked around his small room, at his unmade bed, at the supplies scattered on his desk, at the single photo of his family back on Earth, and at her drawing mounted on the wall in a place of honor. Walked over to the drawing, she stared at it, then she looked at. "You kept it," she said. Froze. Those were the first words she had spoken in 4 months. Her voice was small and scratchy from disuse, but it was there. "Of course I kept it," he said, keeping his own voice steady even though his heart was racing. "It's the most important thing anyone has ever given me." His tail swished once. "Why?" "Because it shows me what you want, what you hope for," knelt down to her level. "And I want that too." She studied his face with those large amber eyes. "Humans leave. Everyone leaves." "Some do," admitted. "But I'm not going anywhere. I made my assignment permanent. I'm staying here. I'm staying with you." "Promise." That single word carried the weight of a universe. The fear of a child who had lost everything. The desperate hope of someone who was afraid to hope. "I promise," said. "For as long as you want me here, I'll be here." Stood very still. Then slowly she moved closer. She sat down in the chair near his desk. She pulled her tail around herself, and she closed her eyes. Within minutes she was asleep. Couldn't move. He was afraid that any sound would wake her, would break this fragile moment. So he stayed exactly where he was, kneeling on the floor, watching this small alien child who had decided to trust him. After a while he carefully stood and draped a blanket over her. She made a small sound, a rumbling that came from deep in her chest. Had told him that was purring. Only did that when they felt completely safe. Sat at his desk and went back to work, doing his reports as quietly as possible. Every few minutes he would glance over at. She slept peacefully, her breathing deep and steady. 2 hours later found them like that. She stood in the doorway taking in the scene, the sleeping cub, the watchful human, the drawing on the wall. "Told me she spoke," whispered. 3 words, said softly. "That's 3 more than she's said in months." Came into the room. "Do you understand what's happening? She's bonding with you, really bonding. If this continues, separating you would be fatal for her." "I know. You're human, there's no precedent for this. No guidelines, no support system. You're walking into completely unknown territory." "I know," repeated. "But look at her, she's sleeping, really sleeping. She hasn't done that since she arrived." She spoke. "She came to my room, she trusted me enough to be vulnerable." Looked at the sleeping cub. "Myra is worried. She says you're interfering with something you don't understand. That bonding is sacred, that you could hurt without meaning to." "What do you think?" Was quiet for a long time. "I think that cub was dying, and now she's not. I think sometimes we have to trust what's right in front of us instead of what's supposed to be possible." She turned to leave, then stopped. "But be sure, be absolutely sure, because once this bond forms completely, there's no going back, for either of you." After left, looked at again, at her peaceful face, at the way her paw was tucked under her chin, at the slight smile on her face as she dreamed. He thought about his promise, about the unknown path ahead, about all the people who said this was impossible. Then he thought about a small cub who had chosen to move closer, who had drawn their hands almost touching, who had spoken 3 words, "Why?" and "Promise." Took out his own sketchpad. His drawing skills weren't as good as, but he tried. He drew the two of them sitting together in his room. Under it he wrote, "I promise." Tomorrow he would show her. Tomorrow they would take the next step. But tonight, a father watched his daughter sleep, even if the galaxy didn't have words for what they were yet. He knew and she knew, and that was enough. 8 months after first arrived at the station, the galaxy felt different. The war was officially over. Peace treaties had been signed. Now came the hard part, rebuilding lives. The station had become more organized. Supply lines were steady. Medical care had improved. Children laughed in the common rooms. It almost felt normal. Had transformed completely. She spoke now in both galactic common and she helped with the younger children, her natural gentleness showing through. She attended school sessions and learned quickly. She ate regular meals. She played with the other cubs, though she always stayed close to. Every night she slept in his quarters. She had her own bed now, set up next to his desk. She would curl up there and purr herself to sleep while worked on his reports. It was their routine, their normal. But something was changing on the station. Ships were arriving more frequently, official representatives from different worlds. They wore nice uniforms and carried. They walked through the wards, assessing, evaluating, taking notes. "What are they doing?" asked one morning, watching a group of officials talk with. "They're finding new homes for everyone," said carefully. "Permanent homes." His tail went rigid. "We have a home here. This is temporary, remember. The station is just a stopping place." "Where will we go?" His chest tightened. He hadn't thought about we. He had been avoiding thinking about it. "I don't know yet." A human psychologist named arrived that week. She was kind but efficient. She interviewed every child, assessing their needs and placement options. When she called in for evaluation, the cub refused to enter the room without, allowed it. "Hello," said warmly. "I'm here to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" Pressed closer to his leg. "What kind of questions?" "About how you're feeling, about what you need to be happy." "I'm happy now." "Made a note. That's wonderful. Can you tell me about your daily routine?" Described her days, waking up, breakfast with, school with, helping in the ward, drawing, stories before sleep. Her voice was steady and clear. She seemed like any normal child. "And who do you feel closest to?" asked. Looked at him. "Anyone else?" "Is nice, too, makes me laugh." Thought for a moment. "Myra teaches me things." Wrote more notes. "Do you understand that we're finding permanent homes for all the children, places where you'll live permanently?" His ears flattened. "I live with. Works here, but he's not." Paused, choosing her words carefully. "He's not your family, not officially." "Yes, he is." His voice was firm. "After the evaluation, met with privately. She's bonded to you, completely. Her psychological profile shows clear attachment." "Is that a problem?" asked. "It's complicated. Cubs can't be placed with human families. It's never been done. The biological requirements are too different. The cultural barriers too high." "What are her options then?" Pulled up her. "Myra is relocating to a colony in the Outer Rim. They're willing to take all 5 cubs. Would have her own species around her, proper cultural education, everything she needs." "Except me." "Except you," agreed softly. "The other option is a mixed-species foster facility on New Kyoto. Good reputation, professional staff, but she wouldn't have a family there, just caregivers." That night was quiet. She picked at her dinner. She didn't work on her drawings. She just sat curled in her bed, staring at nothing. "You okay?" asked. "Are you sending me away?" His heart broke. "No, never. The lady said I have to go somewhere else, that you're not my family." Knelt beside her bed. "You are my family. I don't care what any paperwork says. You're my daughter in every way that matters." "Then why can't I stay with you?" "Because," struggled for words, Because the galaxy has rules, and those rules say humans and can't be family. Amber eyes filled with tears. Didn't cry often, but when they did, it was heartbreaking. Rules are stupid. Yeah, agreed. Sometimes they really are. Didn't sleep that night. Heard her moving around in the darkness. When he woke at dawn, she wasn't in her bed. He found her at the common room table, surrounded by drawing supplies. She had papers spread everywhere. Colored pencils rolled across the surface. She was working with intense focus, her face close to the paper. "Have you been up all night?" She didn't answer, she kept drawing. Made breakfast, she didn't eat. He tried to convince her to rest. She ignored him. She just kept working on that drawing, her paws moving with precise determination. Finally, around midday, she stopped. She sat back and looked at what she had created. Then she looked at. "It's done," she said. Came over to the table. What he saw took his breath away. It was a family portrait, the most detailed, beautiful thing had ever drawn. In the center stood. She had captured everything, his tired eyes, his gentle smile, even the worn patches on his station uniform. Every detail was perfect. Beside him, holding his hand, was herself. Her silver-blue fur shone in the drawing. Her tail curved contentedly. She had drawn herself looking up at with complete trust. Around them were other figures, standing tall and protective, with her kind face, with his tool belt, holding a teaching pad. Even Myra was there, standing slightly apart but still part of the group. They all surrounded and like a shield, like support, like family. At the top of the drawing, in careful script with common translation below, she had written, "My family." His eyes burned. He tried to speak but couldn't. He just picked up the drawing with shaking hands. "Is it good?" asked in a small voice. She looked worried now, vulnerable. Knelt down and pulled her into a hug. She came willingly, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Her purr vibrated through both of them. "It's perfect," he whispered. "It's the most perfect thing I've ever seen. We're family, right? Even if the galaxy says we're not." "We're family," confirmed, "always." Pulled back to look at his face. "Then fight for me, please. Don't let them take me away." Looked at this small being who had become his whole world. This child who had chosen him, who had drawn them into being family, who trusted him with everything she had. "I will," he promised. "I'll fight with everything I have." That afternoon went to his office. He didn't knock. He just walked in and placed the drawing on her desk. Looked at it for a long time. She traced the careful lines with one finger. She read the words at the top. Her expression was unreadable. "You know what you're asking for," she finally said. "I know. Human adoption, it's never been approved. The council will fight it. They'll say it's impossible." "I know. You'll have to modify your entire life. Learn her culture. She'll outlive you by a century. You'll have to plan for what happens after you're gone." "I know." Picked up the portrait, studying how it drawn their hands clasped together. "Why, you could have a simple life. You could do your work and go home. Why take this on?" Thought about a small cub sitting alone in a corner. About the moment she moved 3 feet closer. About her first words. About her sleeping peacefully in his quarters. About 8 months of learning to be family. "Because she's my daughter," he said simply, "and you don't abandon your children." Looked at him for a long moment, then she stood up. "I'll make the calls. I'll contact the Galactic Adoption Council, but this will change everything. For you, for her, for how the whole galaxy sees us." "Good," said. "It's time things changed." That evening did something unexpected. She took the portrait and left the station. She went to the small art shop run by a refugee artisan. She explained what she needed. The artisan, a being with 6 arms and artistic talent beyond measure, understood immediately. "This is not just a drawing. This is a declaration." "Yes," said. "Then it deserves to be preserved." The artisan created a custom frame. It was simple but elegant, with protective glass that would last for centuries. The frame was made from salvaged ship metal, a piece from the station itself, so the portrait would always carry a piece of where their family began. When returned, she found in the common room with. The cub was curled against his side, listening as he read a story. Cleared her throat. "I have something for you." She held up the framed portrait. Under the station lights, it looked like art, like something precious, like something worth fighting for. Gasped, "You framed it?" "Of course," said. She handed it to with formal ceremony. "For your daughter's first family portrait, may it be the first of many." The entire common room went silent. Everyone heard that word, daughter. Looked up at her, ears perked high, her tail still, waiting. Stood up, he held the framed portrait carefully. Then he looked down at and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "Yes, my daughter." Made a sound, half purr, half cry. She pressed against him and he wrapped his free arm around her. Around them the other humans started clapping, slowly at first, then louder, whistled, was crying. Even some of the alien refugees joined in, showing approval in their own ways. Myra stood in the back of the room. She watched for a long moment. Then she placed her hand over her heart, a gesture of deep respect. Carried the portrait back to his quarters, followed close behind. He hung it on the wall in the place of honor, right where everyone would see it when they entered. "There," he said, "now everyone knows." Stared at the portrait, at the family she had drawn, at the human holding her hand, at the words declaring them family. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we fight," said. "The council will try to say no. They'll have 100 reasons why this can't work, but we'll show them they're wrong." "How?" "By being exactly what we are, a family." Took his hand just like in the portrait. "I'm scared." "Me too," admitted. "But we're scared together, and that makes us brave." That night slept peacefully. The framed portrait watched over them both, a declaration of love that would echo across the galaxy. Tomorrow the fight would begin, but tonight they were just what they had always been. A father and his daughter, together. The message came 3 days after submitted the adoption application. It was short and formal. The Galactic Adoption Council had received his request. They would schedule a hearing. Expected timeline, 6 months. 6 months of uncertainty, 6 months of waiting, 6 months of hopping. The news spread fast, first through the station, then to other refugee centers, then across communication networks to every corner of settled space. A human wanted to adopt a cub, the first cross-species adoption of its kind. Some people called it beautiful, others called it dangerous, most just called it impossible. A human lawyer named contacted 2 weeks later. "I want to represent you," she said over the video call. "No charge." "Why?" asked. "Because I believe in what you're doing, and because the law needs to catch up with reality." Was young, but her eyes were sharp. "This won't be easy. The council is already preparing their opposition." "What are they saying?" "That humans can't provide proper cultural education, that the difference will traumatize when you die, that biology requires specific conditions humans can't meet, that you're too emotionally volatile." Felt anger rise in his chest. "They've never even met me." "They don't need to, they're arguing from principle, not facts." Leaned forward. "But here's the thing, we have facts on our side, is thriving with you. She was dying before. That's not opinion. That's documented medical reality." Life on the station continued. Went to work every day. Went to school. They ate meals together. They read stories. They drew pictures. They were just a family trying to live normally while the galaxy argued their right to exist. But the stress leaked through. Had nightmares more often. She would wake up crying, afraid that someone would take her away. Would hold her and promise it would be okay, even though he didn't know if that was true. "What if they say no?" asked one night. "Then we appeal, we fight harder." "What if they still say no?" looked at his daughter, at her scared face. He couldn't lie to her. "I don't know, but I won't stop fighting, ever." Messages started arriving. Some were supportive, other humans who worked with aliens, mixed species families who had faced similar battles. They shared advice, encouragement, stories of hope. But other messages were cruel. Some humans accused of trying to erase culture. Some said he was disrespecting their species. Anonymous messages called him names, told him to give up, said deserved better than a human parent. Deleted those messages before could see them, but they hurt. They made him doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Am I being selfish? Then would laugh at something said, or she would show him a new drawing, or she would fall asleep with her paw in his hand, and would remember why he was fighting. The hearing was scheduled for a station date 3 months away. It would be held via hologram with representatives from multiple councils present, would have to present his case. Experts would testify. Then the council would decide. A named was leading the opposition. He was a council representative, old and traditional. He released a public statement. Humans are a young species. They feel strongly but briefly. This human may care for the cub now, but what about in 10 years, 20? Will he still be there? Cubs bond for life. Breaking that bond would be fatal. We cannot risk a child's life on human impulses. Wanted to respond publicly but refused. Let them talk. Our actions will speak louder. A human senator named Jinnah took up their cause. She started advocating for broader family rights legislation. She gave speeches. She wrote articles. She made the adoption about more than just, and it became about what kind of galaxy they wanted to build. "After the war, we said we would be different," Jinnah said in one interview. "We said we would come together, but we can't come together if we won't let ourselves be family." The day of the hearing arrived too quickly and not quickly enough. Put on his best uniform, wore traditional ceremonial clothes that Myra had helped her prepare. They were both terrified. The hearing room was set up in the station's conference center. A large holographic display showed the council members from different locations, representatives from the council, the Human Adoption Bureau, neutral observers, all of them watching. Spoke first. His image was large on the display, his features serious and stern. "This hearing concerns the attempted adoption of the cub by the human. The council opposes this adoption for the following reasons." He listed them methodically: cultural concerns, biological requirements, disparity, the untested nature of human bonds, the risk to. "Humans are capable of great compassion," concluded. "But compassion is not enough. This cub deserves more than good intentions. She deserves the stability and cultural foundation that only her own species can provide." Then it was turn. "Members of the council, you've heard the concerns. Now hear the facts." She presented medical records. Condition when she arrived, critical, failing, expected to die. Condition now, healthy, thriving, psychologically stable. "You can argue about theory all you want," said, "but the reality is simple. This child was dying. This human saved her life. And not just physically, he gave her a reason to live." Next, via hologram. "I'm a medical psychologist specializing in trauma. I've evaluated monthly for 8 months. Her improvement is remarkable. Her bond with is real and healthy. Separating them now would constitute severe psychological harm, possibly fatal harm." The Human Adoption Bureau representative, a woman named, raised concerns. "What about long-term planning? What happens when dies? Live much longer than humans." Spoke for the first time. "I've already set up a trust. When I die, we'll have financial support. I've arranged for Myra and the colony to provide cultural guidance throughout her life. I've documented everything about her early life, her family, her culture. She won't lose her heritage. She'll have both her identity and her human family." Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The council wanted to hear from. She stood up, small and brave in her ceremonial clothes. A translator appeared in the hologram to help if needed. said, his voice gentler now. "Do you understand what adoption means?" "Yes," said clearly. "It means making family official." "And you want to be your parent?" "He already is my parent." His voice was steady. "He sits with me when I have bad dreams. He learns my language. He makes food I can eat. He keeps my drawings. He chose to stay when he could have left. That's what parents do." The chamber was silent. Continued. "You say humans feel strongly but briefly, but has been there every single day for 8 months. Every day. He didn't have to. He chose to. That's not brief. That's forever." His expression softened. "Child, we only want what's best for you." "Then let me stay with my father." The word hung in the air. Father. After sat down, Myra asked to speak. This was unexpected. Myra had been against the adoption from the start. "I am Elder Myra of the people," she said formally. "I initially opposed this adoption. I believed it was impossible for a human to raise a cub properly." She paused. "I was wrong." Whispers ran through the council chamber. "I watched my species die in the war," Myra continued. "I watched our culture burn. I thought the only way to preserve what we are was to keep ourselves separate. But I was thinking about the past, not the future. This human hasn't erased identity. He's helped her embrace it while also embracing him. She is fully and fully his daughter. Both, not one or the other." Myra looked directly at. "Family isn't about biology, it's about who stays." This human stayed. The hearing lasted 6 hours. Experts, council members asked questions. Arguments were made from every angle. Finally, the council said they would deliberate and announce their decision in 3 months. 3 more months of waiting. And left the hearing room exhausted, was quiet on the way back to their quarters. "Did I say the right things?" she finally asked. "You were perfect," assured her. "But what if they still say no?" Knelt down to her level. "Then we appeal, we fight again, we don't give up, because that's what families do, they fight for each other." That night neither of them could sleep. They sat together looking at the framed portrait on the wall, the family had drawn, the family they were fighting to keep. His voice was small in the darkness. "Yeah. Even if they say no, you're still my father, right?" Pulled her close. "Always, no matter what any council says, you're my daughter. That's not something they can take away." But he hoped, desperately hoped, that they wouldn't have to prove it. The message came 92 days later. The council had reached a decision. His hands shook as he opened it. Pressed against his side, her claws digging slightly into his leg from nervousness. The words swam before his eyes. Legal language, official terminology. He had to read it twice to understand. Then he couldn't speak. He just nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "They said yes." Conditional approval managed. "They said yes." Made a sound, half laugh, half cry. She jumped into his arms, purring so loudly it was almost a roar. Around them others had gathered. They had all been waiting. "What are the conditions?" asked. Read them aloud through his tears. Cultural training, maintained contact with communities, environmental standards, psychological evaluations, long-term care planning. "I accept," said. "I accept all of it." His hologram appeared. She was smiling. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," corrected, "all of us." That evening the station celebrated. It wasn't just about one family anymore. It was about what was possible, about the galaxy changing, about barriers breaking down. But in their quarters, and sat quietly together, looking at the portrait that had started everything. "My daughter," said softly. "My father," replied. And finally, it was official. The adoption ceremony happened 3 weeks later. It was a blend of human and traditions, something new that had never existed before. Wore ceremonial robes that Myra had prepared. They were silver and blue, matching her fur, with traditional symbols embroidered along the edges. Wore his best formal clothes, but around his shoulders he draped a honor cloth that signified family commitment. The ceremony was held in the station's observation deck, with the stars visible through the massive windows. Representatives from both species attended. So did all the station staff who had watched this family form. Myra performed the traditional blessing, speaking in the old language. Then spoke the human portion, about the meaning of chosen family and commitment. When it was time for the vows, spoke first. He had learned specifically for this moment. His pronunciation wasn't perfect, but the words were clear and sincere. I promise to honor your heritage, to protect your heart, to be there through all your days. You are my daughter from this moment until my last breath and beyond. Responded in kind, her voice steady and strong. I promise to honor your teaching, to carry your love, to remember that family is chosen. You are my father from this moment until the stars go dark. The official observer declared them legally bonded, father and daughter, family. When everyone else clapped and cheered, just wrapped her arms around and purred. That sound said more than any words could. After the ceremony, there was a celebration, food from multiple cultures, music, laughter. For a few hours, the station forgot about war and loss and pain. They just celebrated something beautiful, a family choosing each other. But the real work was just beginning. 2 months later, and moved to a colony world called Haven. It was a small planet established specifically for mixed families and refugees who wanted to start over. The population was diverse, humans, and dozens of other species all trying to build something new together. Their home was custom-built by an architect named. She had designed it to meet all the council's requirements. Climate control suitable for biology, a large studio space for art, a meditation garden that combined human and elements, space for visitors because would need regular contact with elders and community. The first thing hung in their new home was the framed portrait. It went in the living room where everyone could see it. The drawing that had changed everything. The declaration of love that had made the galaxy take notice. Life on Haven was different from the station. Quieter, more stable. Got a job at the local refugee support center. Attended a mixed-species school where she quickly made friends. Every evening they had dinner together at their small table. They talked about their days, showed her schoolwork, helped her practice her writing. They were just a normal family doing normal things. Except they weren't normal. They were historic, the first human family, and the galaxy was watching. News organizations wanted interviews. Researchers wanted to study them. Other families considering cross-species adoption reached out for advice and became symbols of something bigger than themselves. "Do you mind?" asked one evening after another interview request arrived. "All this attention." Thought about it. If it helps other families, then no, I don't mind. She was growing so fast. Already she was taller, her features maturing. At 11 cycles old, she looked like a teenager. Her art had evolved too. She still drew portraits, but now they were more sophisticated, more profound. Her artwork started appearing in galleries. Critics called it emotionally raw and deeply moving. Drew refugee families of all combinations, mixed species homes, survivors helping survivors. Her art exhibition traveled to 3 planets and raised money for refugee aid programs. But the centerpiece of every exhibition was always the same, that original portrait. The 6-year-old cub's drawing of her and her human, holding hands, the one that started everything. People would stand in front of it and cry. They would bring their own mixed families to see it. They would take pictures. Some would touch the frame gently, reverently. "Why do you think people care so much about that drawing?" asked once. "Because it's hope," said. "It's proof that love can cross any boundary." 3 years after the adoption, the Galactic Unity Festival was held on Earth. It was humanity's biggest celebration, and this year's theme was Families Without Borders. Art was invited as the main exhibition. She was 14 cycles now, roughly 17 in human years. She had grown into a confident young adult, though still with that gentle heart had first seen. They traveled to Earth together. It was first-time seeings. She was fascinated by everything: the blue skies, the natural weather, the diversity of human cultures. "Your planet is beautiful," she said, watching the ocean from their hotel window. "It's your planet too now," reminded her. "You're a citizen of Earth and of Haven, both." The exhibition opened with massive crowds. Journalists were everywhere. Holographic cameras captured every angle, but the biggest crowd was around the original portrait. A young child stood in front of it with her human parents. She had 3 arms and golden scales that caught the light. She stared at the drawing with wide eyes. "Did you really draw that when you were little?" the child asked when she saw nearby. "Yes," said gently, kneeling down to the child's level. "When I was 6 cycles old." "Why?" "Because I loved my father, and I wanted everyone to know we were family." The child looked at her own human parents, then back at, "People say we're weird, that humans and can't be family." "People said that about us too," said. "But look at us now, 5 years later, and we're still family, still together, still happy." "So it works." "It works if you love each other. That's the only thing that really matters." The child's parents thanked with tears in their eyes. "You gave us hope," the mother said. "When we saw your story, we knew it was possible." Realized then how far the ripples had spread. Her simple drawing, her fight to stay with, had opened doors for hundreds of other families. A journalist interviewed them for a documentary about cross-species families. "What do you want people to know about human families?" she asked. Started to answer but interrupted gently. "That human doesn't matter, we're just family." "But surely there are unique challenges." "Every family has challenges," said. "Ours just look different from some others, but the love is the same. The commitment is the same." "Do you regret it?" the journalist pressed. "The scrutiny, the requirements, the difficulty." Tail lashed, her sign of annoyance. "Look at the portrait," she said firmly, gesturing to the framed drawing on the wall. "Does that look like regret?" The journalist had no response to that. That evening they returned to their hotel room. Was quieter than usual. "You okay?" asked. "Just thinking," said. "About how far we've come. About that first day on the station when you were sitting in the corner." "I remember," said softly. "I remember thinking I wanted to die, that there was no point in living." "What changed?" "You did. You sat 10 feet away and just stayed. You didn't push. You didn't demand. You just stayed. Came and sat beside him. That's when I first thought maybe, just maybe, it was okay to hope again." Put his arm around her. "You gave me purpose again too, you know. I was just going through motions before you, helping people but never really connecting. You taught me what it meant to be family." They sat together in comfortable silence, looking out at the Earth night sky. His voice was thoughtful. "I know you're going to die before me. That's what everyone worried about." Tensed, they had talked about this before, but it never got easier. "I know. I used to be scared of that, but now I understand something." Looked at him. "You'll die eventually, but what you gave me won't. The love, the confidence, the belief that I deserve to be loved, that stays forever. You're giving me a foundation that will last my whole life." His eyes burned with tears. "You're very wise for 14 cycles. I learned from the best." 5 years passed like a river, steady and inevitable. Was 52 now, with gray streaking his hair and lines around his eyes. Was 19 cycles, a full adult by standards. She had become a renowned artist and an advocate for refugee rights. The house on Haven was filled with memories. New portraits lined the walls, a gallery of their life together. Birthdays, holidays, quiet evenings, adventures to other worlds. Each one carefully drawn by, documenting their family. But the original portrait still hung in its place of honor, a reminder of where they started, of the brave little cub who drew what she wanted and fought for it. moved a bit slower now. His back hurt some mornings. He needed reading glasses, but he still worked at the refugee center. He still had dinner with every evening. He still listened to her talk about her projects and dreams. Other families had followed their path. The Galactic Adoption Council had approved over 1,000 cross-species adoptions. Mixed-species foster programs existed on 89 worlds. What had once been impossible was now just normal. Jinnah's legislation had passed. Cross-species family rights were now galactic law. Children could be adopted across any species boundary, as long as their needs were met and the bonds were real. 442 Station had been converted into a memorial and education center. The common room where and first connected was preserved exactly as it was. Thousands of people visited every year. But the most visited exhibit was simple, that framed portrait displayed behind protective glass. The plaque beneath it read, First Family Portrait, Year 2287, Artist, Age 6 Cycles, the drawing that changed the galaxy, and visited the station on the 5th anniversary of their adoption. They stood together in front of that exhibit, watching other families look at the portrait with wonder. "Do you remember drawing this?" asked. "Every detail," said. "I remember being so scared, thinking that if I could just show everyone we were family, they would have to let us stay together. It worked. It worked because you fought for me, because you refused to give up." A young couple approached them, a human woman and a man with their adopted cub. Are you them?" the woman asked hesitantly. "The ones from the portrait?" "Yes," said with a smile. The cub, tiny and shy, peeked out from behind her human mother. "You're the one who made it okay." Knelt down. "We all made it okay. Everyone who dared to love across boundaries. Everyone who chose family over fear." "Thank you," the cub whispered. After they left, Took's hand, the same way she had drawn in that portrait 20 years ago. "You know what the best part is," he said. "What?" "This isn't just our story anymore. It's everyone's story, every mixed family, every adopted child, every person who learned that family doesn't need to look one way." They walked through the station, past the rooms where they had lived, the ward where they met, the spaces that had witnessed the beginning of their family. On their way out, stopped. She pulled out a sketchpad. She always carried one now and drew quickly. When she finished, she showed. It was a new portrait. The two of them, older now, still holding hands. Around them, dozens of other families, all combinations, all species, all united by choice and love. At the bottom, she wrote, 20 years later, still family, still choosing each other, still changing the galaxy. "One more for the collection?" asked. "Always," said. They left the station and returned to Haven, to their home filled with portraits and memories, to their life that had been impossible once but was now simply theirs. That night they had dinner together at their table. They talked about the day, about the families they had met, about plans for tomorrow. Just a normal evening, just a father and daughter, just a family. And on the wall, in a frame that would last centuries, that first portrait remained. A cub's declaration of love, a human's promise, a galaxy's first step toward understanding that family isn't written in biology or defined by species. It's written in the choice to stay, in the courage to love, in the simple act of holding someone's hand and saying, "You're mine and I'm yours." Added her new drawing to the wall beside the others, a gallery spanning 20 years, a visual history of a family that shouldn't have existed but did. "You know," said, looking at all the portraits, "we're going to run out of wall space eventually." His ears perked up, her version of a smile. "Then we'll add more walls." Outside, Haven's twin moons rose over their garden. Inside, a father and daughter planned their next exhibition, discussed dinner, and argued gently about whose turn it was to wash dishes. Nothing special, nothing dramatic, just life, just love, just family. And sometimes, That's the most revolutionary thing of all. Years from now, when was gone and continued without him, she would still draw. She would still create portraits of families choosing each other across every boundary. She would tell their story to anyone who would listen. But that was future, tonight was now, and now was perfect. "I love you, Dad," said, using the human word she had learned just for him. "I love you too, my daughter," replied, using the phrase she had taught him all those years ago. In a galaxy that had said their family was impossible, they had proved that love was stronger than rules, hope was stronger than fear, and choice was stronger than biology. They had drawn themselves into being family, and they would stay family across every challenge, every year, every obstacle. Because that's what families do. They hold on, they don't let go, they stay. And that simple truth changed everything.